Hi everyone, this is Debbie with Book and Bujo. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you've been here before. Today I wanted to do a little variation on the top 10 favorite authors theme. So instead of doing my top 10 authors of all time, I'm going to do my top 10 authors that I don't hear enough about. Here's my not your typical top 10 authors list. First, I want to do a couple of honorable mentions for some more recognized authors that I do love. This isn't going to be your J.R.R. Tolkien or Brandon Sanderson, Pierce Brown. It's not going to be that kind of list, but there are a few more known authors that I do want to give a shout out to, and that would be Rick Riordan, of course, the Percy Jackson universe. It's one of my absolute favorites. Another one is Andrea Stewart, The Drowning Empire. I loved that series. And then I also have T. Kingfisher, which is kind of a newer favorite author. I really love her books, especially her more kind of fairy tale, gothic horror style books. And then the last honorable mention I want to give is to Melanie Karsak. I have read a couple of her books now, and they've both been 5-star, and I absolutely love them. So she does the Vinland to Valhalla series and The Road to Valhalla. I've read the first book and the prequel book in that series, and then from Vinland to Valhalla, I have read the first book so far, and all of them are 5 stars. Love them. The Nordic and Viking themes are so good. Very well written. Love them. And you just really get in and care about the characters. So I definitely like that. Those are my 4 honorable mentions. So let's go ahead and move into, not really in any particular order, but sort of. We'll still do a countdown kind of from 10 to 1. So number 10 would be Jacqueline Frost. And I absolutely love her Christmas Tree Farm series. So you have Slashing Through the Snow and Sleigh Bells Ring, as in S-L-A-Y. And I love just the play on words that she has for all of her books. I've read at least 4. I believe there's 5 books, and I've read 4 of them so far and loved them all. I loved the characters. The main character gets left like a week before her wedding, or right at the altar, somewhere right in there, really close to the wedding. And so she goes back home, moves back in with her parents until she can kind of get back onto her feet again. And she helps her family, who run a reindeer and a Christmas tree farm. So they have Christmas stuff happening all season long. So they have like a cookie decorating, and they have snowman building and the reindeer games. So a lot of fun games that the whole community and all of the tourists come every year to participate in. And of course, then there's a murder. Something happens, and our main character she's got to stick her nose into it every single time and try and figure out, like, I gotta figure out what's happening. I gotta know what's happening. She puts herself in danger and has to figure out what's going to happen before the murderer comes after her. So it was very fun books. They're just great books. They're popcorn reads that are really quick and easy to get through, but they also are just heartwarming. And Cookie and her goat calendar just steals the show in every book in some way. So fun. And then we have a nonfiction author, which I have really been enjoying all of his books. I get his daily email, and that is Ryan Holiday with The Daily Stoic. And I've read many of his books so far, and have a couple more that I own on my Kindle that I need to get to. But he has The Obstacle is the Way, Stillness is the Key, Daily Meditations with Marcus Aurelius. He's got a really interesting take, and I like that he can kind of break things down a little bit to a more newbie level, I guess, for those of us who are somewhat new, but does not dumb it down so much that those who know what's going on and have been part of the Stoic family for quite a while don't get bored or lose interest. He's able to speak to both, and I think that is definitely a talent, and he is an amazing writer. So Ryan Holiday. I did want to mention that all of the authors on my list, I have read at least 2 or more books from them and have given either both of them 5 stars or the majority of the books that I've read from them 5 stars. So there is. Next up is a dragon book, and that is Michael R. Miller with the Songs of Chaos series. I have not read his other series yet. I've just been reading the Songs of Chaos, and I have read 2 books and a novella so far and loved all 3 of them. I think he's an amazing author, and I can't wait to get the Kickstarter books in for those because they're going to be amazing. And I am looking forward to reading the 3rd book soon, and then the 4th book I believe comes out in, I want to say March. It'll come out in 2025, and that will be on one of my most anticipated lists, most definitely. And I feel like we're going to sense a theme going through all of these authors, and the majority of them are very good with character building. So I'm a very character driven reader, and so if you can hook me with your characters, there doesn't even need to be a plot as long as there's something going on with your character and I see some character growth, some character building, and just I tend to like those kind of books. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love a good plot driven story. I like amazing world building and magic systems and all of that, but I do appreciate most some character building. And next up, we have Ben Galley. Now, I have read 2 books from him. So the first 2 books in the Emaneska series, and love those books. You get some good character building, but you also get some really interesting world building and the magic system that kind of interweaves along with it and helps to make the character shine in a different way, not just through character growth, but also through his learning and having to navigate a magic system in a world that is hostile and people out to get him and having to beat the odds, so to speak. But I also can't wait to get those Kickstarter books. You got a lot of Kickstarter book unboxings coming up in the next few months. I hope, as long as they're all done on time. Next up, we have Renee George, and she is hilarious. So I have read 4 of the 5, I believe there's 5, Grimoires of a Middle-Aged Witch series, and they are amazing. Our main character has recently been divorced, and she is raising her high school son, and she just is a hoot. She's out estate shopping with her sister, and they find this box that she decides she must have this box of like books and other things where you can like bid on certain things in an estate sale. She ends up getting this box. It has this old grimoire in it, and she finds out from that she is a witch, and she needs to get a handle on her powers and figure out how to use them, or else they're pretty much going to kill her. So that's the basic gist of the stories. So each book is a different form of magic that she needs to learn. Along the way, you have some amazing friends that she meets and different people that come into her life through finding this gift of magic. And she's just sarcastic and hilarious. There's pop culture references, which always makes a book fun. And it's just lighthearted, even though there's some, stressful situations. But overall, the books are very lighthearted, popcorn reads. You can totally bingeable. You could read these back to back in 1 month and thoroughly enjoy them all. Next up, we have Dusty Bowling, and she is a middle grade and YA author, and I love her books. They are so inspiring. She talks about just real world situations, like maybe in one of the books I read, her mom was a drug addict, and that was Across the Desert, and that was the first book I read, and that just got me in all the feels, and such great characters. So her main characters are always junior hires on up to high schoolers, and they go through something in order to help them to grow and reach the end and make new friends and found family and just some amazing things along the way. So Across the Desert was the first one I read, And I actually picked this one up because it was based in Arizona, which of course is where I'm from. And so I love any books with Arizona references just because it's very fun and nostalgic feeling. And then from there, I went to 24 Hours in Nowhere, which is Nowhere, Arizona, a city in Arizona. And that is more southern, between Tucson and Phoenix area. That's where it's based. And it's a bunch of kids that there's bullies and the kids getting bullied and people who stand up for themselves and people who are standing up for you. And the bully, of course, makes this poor kid have to go into the mine to try and find a little gold nugget for him and to bring it back. And then he can have the bike back that he stole from the girl who stood up for the poor little guy. And of course, the bully's lackey has to go with the young gentleman because he wants to make sure he's not pulling a fast one and actually goes into the mine and all of this. Well, you're not supposed to go into the mine because it's dangerous. It's an old closed off mine, and so you're not supposed to go in there. But they go in there, and of course the girl finds out, and then one of the other friends finds out, so they end up having the group going into the mine, and this little adventure that they get to go on through the mines and getting out and having just found maybe some new friends. It was really cute. I enjoyed that one. That one has a little more of an adventurous and kind of not really scary, but a little, we'll say, spoopy feel to it. And then the last one I read was Avon Green is the main character, and it's the insignificant events in the life of a cactus. And it's the first book in a series, and this takes after a girl who was born with no arms and all the things that she has to deal with throughout her life, with people just gawking and staring at her. How'd you lose your arms? And of course she would make up a different story for every single person because she was tired of people asking her. And there's also a boy with Tourette's, and then we have a boy that others pick on because of his size. And I just love the diversity that she puts in her books, whether it is some kind of like a bullying or a mental issue, or maybe somebody's dealing with drugs, or somebody has a disability. I just love all of that she puts in her books, and she does it in such a loving way. And it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel cringy at all. It just feels very natural, and I love that. So Dusty Bowling, great comfort reads. I think these would be good for parents and kids to read together. Yeah, I think parents can learn a lot from these, but I think kids could get a lot out of them as well. Great books. Next up, we have Kyoko M, and I am currently reading the 5th book in the series on my Kindle. The series is of Cinder and Bone, and the book I am reading is of Claws and Inferno. And this series is all about 2 scientists that have dedicated their lives to try and bring back dragons. So dragons have been hunted to extinction, and they are trying to clone dragons to bring them back, to study them, and to bring them back into the world. And they want to do this more naturally, just like one species at a time. So, you're not all of a sudden having dragon population taking over and people getting injured and things like that because of it. So they wanted to do it much more slowly and much more naturally. But of course, someone steals their research and brings back all the dragons. Because of course, we have the mafia, we have the dragon fighting rings, we have the Apophis Society, and we have all of these people who want a hand in the fame of all of this and what they can get out of it. So of course we have the dragon fighting rings, so they try and bring back some of the more dangerous dragons because they want to win and make money and all of that. But then there's also some side stories that go along with this, with some assassins and people out for the other people, and there's a polyamorous relationship in here, which is not really my thing, but I think this one is done really well. It's natural to the story. It's not just like put in there for shock value or just to have some type of polyamorous relationship. It makes sense with the story itself, and I think it's done very beautifully. And I just love all of the characters, the good and the bad characters. There's a reason you don't like the bad characters, and there's a reason you really do like the good ones, even though at times they can be a little annoying. But that's natural over a course of books because we all are a little annoying at times, right? But I love how she has the dragons fitting into the world that we live in right now, as well as the snarkiness and pop culture references. Always makes it fun. I have one book left to go of Kyoko M's of Cinder and Bone series, and that is a little novella that is the final book. And I'm looking forward to seeing what other books she has out there, because I have thoroughly enjoyed all of these books. Next up, you've heard me talk about him quite a bit, especially recently, because his Kickstarter is going to be launching soon, and I will leave the link to that down below in case you would like to join in. But that is David Estes. So I have his Fatemarked series. I have the entire series on my Kindle, and then I have the first book physically from his previous Kickstarter. And I have also read and own his A Slip series, which is a sci-fi dystopian series. Also, very good series, but Fatemarked is one of my favorite high epic fantasies that I've read. It's got an amazing magic system. It's got very interesting characters. He goes super in depth, has like a whole book that's just the origins of all of the main characters in this series. And you get to find the backstory of most of them. Some of them you get the history of their descendants later on, so their future heirs. And it's just so good. So the Fatemarked series, the tattooed are the ones with the magic. So maybe someone has a tattoo of a sword, and so they are a sword master. And some of them, we have the life marked, we have the truth marked, we have the soul marked, and so they can the death marked. So they all have a very specific magic to them. And the hero marked is another one where they are heroes and they can do amazing feats to save the day. Very interesting story. I would put it along the same style as like Malazan Book of the Fallen, because it's very in depth. There's a lot of war happening as well. There's a lot of politics and military stuff happening in this series. I would also say maybe a little bit of First Law world in here as well with some of the characters. I would definitely check it out. And then, not only is that series amazing, which is a 5-book series, but then his Kingfall Histories is also a 5-book series, and it's set in the same world as Fatemarked, but on a different continent, and it's a different time period. So I think it's quite a few years later. You get references to Fatemarked, so like little Easter eggs in there. You do not need to read Fatemarked before you read Kingfall Histories if you don't want to. But if you do, you'll pick up on some of those little subtle things in there, which is kind of cool. But the Kingfall Histories, they have their own magic system. So we have the God Blades, and there's the bright blades and the dark blades, and these blades are sentient and can do amazing magical things. There's also dragons and amazing characters, character building. Of course, this is all based on war as well, and it's that same kind of Malazan feel to the stories. If you are an audiobook person, the Kingfall Histories are all narrated by Timothy Gerard Reynolds, who is the same one that narrates the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, and he does an amazing job. 5-star. I highly recommend David Estes. And if you have not checked out any of his books, definitely do so. He started out with more sci-fi dystopian style books. He also has some younger books. He also has some books that he has co-authored with Ben Galley, which I can't wait to start reading. I think Demon's Reign is on my list of want to read before the end of the year. So that one, I can't wait to get to that one. And I believe that might actually also be in the same world as Fatemarked and Kingfall Histories. I could be wrong though, but I think I read something about that. But yeah, I will leave his Kickstarter link down below in case you want to check that one out. Final 2. So number 2, I went back and forth on these ones. I'm not sure which way I want to go. We'll just say we have a tie for first place for the first and second, and I will talk about one author first and the other second, but I will let you know what they both are now, and that is Mel Wang and Ryan Cahill, which is kind of funny because I found Ryan Cahill through David Estes. David Estes was recommending Ryan Cahill as an amazing author that you should check out, and I did, and oh boy, do I love his stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about him first, since I found him through David Estes, who was in the number 3 spot. So we have the Bound and the Broken series. I do have the hardcovers so far for The Fall and of Blood and Fire. This is the prequel novella, and this is the first book in the series. The other ones I'm waiting for the Broken Binding editions to come out for the next 2 books in the series, but I do have them on my Kindle and I have them on audiobook, and the audiobook narrator is David Perkins. So the second book then is Of Darkness and Light, and then we have The Exile, and then we have Of War and Ruin, and then The Ice, and then Empires of Dust will be the 4th book that comes out, and that will come out in early 2025, and then there will be another novella and a 5th book that comes out later. I have read both of these multiple times. I am up to, so I've read Of Darkness and Light, and I've read The Exile. All of those I've read multiple times. And then Of War and Ruin I just read this year, and next up I will be reading The Ice, which hopefully I will be able to get to that in October, possibly November. So I will be ready for Empires of Dust when that comes out. So excited. So excited. This series is one of my absolute favorite series, and these editions are so beautiful. The first book follows a lot of familiar tropes and has some familiar styles, so you will see some familiar themes from Lord of the Rings as well as from Aragon. So a lot of people say it's more Aragon for adults, which I have not read the Aragon series yet, so I can't say if that's true or not, but I absolutely loved them, and he wrote it that way on purpose. So once you have read this one, make sure you give the second book a try, because oh Nelly, it gets so much better. Like this one I gave a 4-star to. I thought it was so good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But Of Darkness and Light, 5-star all the way. And then all of the books afterwards have been 5 stars. So The Exile, the novella, as well as Of War and Ruin. And of course they get a chunkier as you go as well. Even the novellas get a little bigger as you go. But they're all so good. Dragons, and you have dragon riders, and you have causes to fight for. You have Uroks and giants, or the Utner. There's fae, and there's elves, and there's dwarves, and there's humans, and it's just such a good series. It is so well written. I love the relationship building that we get between all of the characters, even if the characters are kind of grating on each other, but they have to travel together to get from one place to the next, and they have to be civil to each other or have to find a way to get along as they go. I like seeing that friction and how they deal with that. Sometimes it's in a positive way, sometimes it's a little more detrimental, especially to the group as a whole. But overall, I love the characterization, and the plot is interesting. There's a great character growth, especially in a couple of the main characters as they're kind of young when they start out in the book, and we get to watch them get a little bit older as well. And the relationship between Kaigen and his dragon, and I can't wait to see what happens with Wrist and Dan and the whole gang. Yes, I'm so invested in all of these characters. No one is surprised by ML Wang being one of my favorite authors. I own multiple copies of The Sword of Kaigen. I also own Blood Over Bright Haven, and I have that one on my Kindle, and I'm waiting for my hardcover to come in October, so I may have to give that one another read. But 5-star books for both of these. I think I've read this one 3 times in the last 2 years. I read it in like January. Was it January last year? And then again in like July or October or something like that. And yeah, so good. Yes. Her writing style is really easy to read, and she does a lot of good tension building between the plot and the characters, the storyline, how it moves along. She just is so good at building the tension as you go, and then having a release, and then building tension, then having a release. And she's really good at being able to get right into your emotions and pull on your heartstrings, or get you riled up about something. Like Blood Over Bright Haven is a great example of just like hating parts of what is happening in the book, but in a good way, like the injustice of things and the unfairness of things that are happening to some of the characters. Like, it just riles you up and you just like want to fight for them and fight for what's right. And I love that she can bring that emotion out of you, which is pretty amazing. Not all authors are able to do that quite so well. And this one is definitely a book that got me quite emotional. There's a few different spots in this book that really make you feel one way or the other, and she just kind of pulls you in to the situation. And if you've read this, you kind of know this scene, as well as a couple of other scenes that just make you feel like you're there and you really care about what's happening. Emma Wang, I think she is an amazing author, and I cannot wait to see what else she comes up with in the next few years. And she is definitely an auto-buy author for me. So my top 3 favorite authors are definitely auto-buy. As soon as I find out they have a book coming out, I don't even read the description. I just go in and pre-order it, and yeah, read it as soon as it comes in. Those were my top 10 lesser known authors. I would love to know if you agree with any of my top 10 choices, or if you have a different top 10 that you would love to share with me. Let me know down in the comments. And if you have a specific book suggestion that you think I should read, I would love to read that. So leave that down in the comments below and I will check them out. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you check out all of the links I have down in the description box below, including my Storygraph and my Goodreads. Please give a quick like, comment, and subscribe if you want it, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other bookish content. And until next time, keep reading. Bye!